Hey everyone, Joshua Kirk here with you once again, and now it's time for episode 274 of Album of the Day, in which for today's album review, I'm going to be talking about a singer-songwriter from the UK who very much first broke out kind of somewhere in the early 2010s, and she's made quite a few albums since then, and has become a pretty big part of the current movement of singer-songwriter and folk music. I am, of course, talking about the one and only Laura Marling, and I'm here to review her fourth studio album, which was released, I believe it's her fourth studio album, which was released on April 10th, 2020, and the album is called Song for Our Daughter, and it's the follow-up to 2017's Semper Femina. Laura Marling is an artist that I've known for a little while now. I did actually get to hear Semper Femina, her last record, and I admit I used to really love that album, and thus really love Laura Marling's music. However, as I've gotten older, I found myself growing more and more tired of her music. I mean, not that it's bad or anything like that. I think it's decent, but it just I don't know. I guess I'm at an age now where I kind of have to really connect with the songwriting in order for me to be really in love with it. So I kind of came into this album anything could happen. But then, all of a sudden, it gets this wave of critical acclaim. Some of it coming from people whose music tastes and opinions I really trust. For example, Anthony Fantano gave this album a 9 out of 10. So, I kind of thought, well, this is a pretty unexpected choice for him to give a 9. So, I guess that means it must be really good. So, even though this record came out midway through April, it was more the end of April when I finally got around to it. So I listened to it, and I can totally see why a lot of people are raving about this one. This is a pretty great record. Great record. It's definitely not really anything all that different from anything Laura has done before. It definitely is still very much steeped in pretty typical indie folk and singer-songwriter music. It's not a very innovative or experimental kind of record. But what really makes this album, I think, so compelling is just the songwriting has just hit a really strong peak right now on this record. It's a kind of a loose concept album that's dedicated to a fictional daughter, because Laura actually doesn't have a daughter, but, really this is the kind of record where she sort of takes a pretty potent observation at, what it means really to be a woman in this kind of, crazy, burning society. But not in a way that's, preachy or anything like that. I mean, this is the kind of record that even I can really connect to, I think. The opening track, Alexandra, I think is a really beautiful way to sort of open the record and bring you in. And the finger-picked guitars, love the percussion, the vocals on here sound great. The pedal steel in the background, I think, really adds a lot to the track as well. Well, it's a pretty straightforward kind of alternative country leaning sort of ballad, and lyrically it is a song where a song that kind of looks at curiosity and sort of wondering about one's own identity, at least how I interpreted it. This is a kind of song where she does not say a lot, but it's definitely enough for me to really get the point that she's getting across. And I think, with songwriting this good, instrumentals that are relatively spare and kind of skeletal only allow the songwriting to shine through that much more. Not to mention, the production is handled by Ethan Johns, who is pretty notorious for his work with other kind of folky Americana leading artists, most notably people like Ryan Adams or Rail Montaigne. Uh, Moving on to the next track, Held Down, which was one of the teaser tracks for this record, and I could definitely see how it is a pretty good choice for the single from this record. It's definitely one of the catchier, more accessible tracks on the record. I think the instrumental is very gorgeously composed with the slide guitar and the very intricate vocal harmonies that really color the song very nicely. I think the drums, the guitars, and the strings have this really rustic feel to them that I really like. Even though I wouldn't say this is one of my favorite tracks on here, I mean, musically it is gorgeous, but lyrically, though I think it is pretty decent, it's not quite the strongest song on here lyrically. It seems this is the one example of the instrumental kind of overpowering the songwriting a little bit, and I guess this is kind of one issue that I have with some of Laura's other projects, like her Semper Femina project, is that, the instrumental is really well done, but it kind of overpowers the songwriting to the point of it not really connecting with me. The next track, Strange Girl, is, however, one of the absolute highlights for me. I love this instrumental. The catchy, somewhat funky groove from the guitars and the percussion. There's a really awesome bongo part on there that I think really adds a nice pulse to the track. The pulse to the track here, and I could tell just from how passionately Laura is singing on this track that she and her collaborators are just having fun in the studio, and I swear I even heard her kind of chuckle a little bit in her vocal, really showing some great emotion there as she's sort of singing about this person that she has a desire to be around just because their habits or their personality is a little bit out there. And also there are some pretty hilarious lines like, cut up all relations because you could not stand your friends. It's definitely in my top 3, favorite tracks off this record. The next one, Only the Strong, definitely is a much more emotionally cutting moment on the record, and one that couldn't have been more relevant to this year where we've got, a global pandemic and all this stuff happening in the world. And the line that especially just hits me hard is the line of, love is a sickness cured by time. I kind of have to grab a tissue as soon as the verse with that line in it comes in, because, I don't know, just, it gets me every time. Yeah. It's me every time. Lovely pianos. The mournful strings, I think, complement the song very well. The next song, Blow by Blow, is kind of a bit of a Kate Bush or Norah Jones, it sounds like, inspired piano ballad. I really like the lyrics that open the track. They're definitely very depressing, for sure. However, once the strings come in, they don't really do that much for me. They kind of, overpower the song to the point of me not really being all that crazy about some of the lyrics that follow, even if I think if the strings weren't there, maybe they'd have had a greater impact on me, but because they're kind of, stealing the show here, I'm not really feeling as much emotion as I want to, even though I will say Laura's singing is definitely very good. That is a pretty big selling point of the record. Laura, for the entire record, just sounds killer. Killer. The next track, which is the title track, song for her daughter. Basically, is kind of the song where she's really directly singing to this fictional daughter. It's sort of like, not real in the sense of like her actually, singing to someone, but, sort of imagining what would it be like if she did have a daughter, and, basically what she would do and how she would raise that child if that were to happen. And she does it with such, grace and empathy, even though she is singing some lines that will bring, like, tears to your eyes. Tears to your eyes, and definitely beautiful. And the strings that accompany the song, I think, really channel those emotions very well, as does the finger-picked guitar and the piano. So piano. The song Fortune, the title of it, Fortune, it could be kind of a metaphor for, sort of life or something like that. Like, it's not really referring to you spending a fortune on something, but more like, you're spending your life on something. And in the case of this year, it'd be spending your life kind of socially distanced and, at home mostly, and wearing a mask and stuff like that. So it definitely sort of a lonely kind of emotion that I think we all can very much relate to. Melodically, I think it is one of the best tracks on here. I love how it's sort of sweeping. The song is like, it's literally like honey coming down my ears in a good way. Especially with those strings on there. The strings on there, and just one example of how in the future Laura could continue to make music this great that will definitely show some improvement along the way. The song The End of the Affair, kind of as the title suggests, is kind of a song sort of where Laura seems to be grappling with the aftermath of an affair she recently had that didn't really go the way she planned. It's planned, which I know sounds like a pretty conventional subject matter, right? But just the way Laura delivers it with her vocal and how strange the song kind of is melodically because of how sophisticated she is with her singing ability, is definitely what makes this song very much stand out above pretty cliched sort of milquetoast, like, the breakup songs, whatever you want to call them. The song Hope We Meet Again is a song that's sort of a bit of a kind of a leap forward into something looking more at the positive after the song, but you can tell that Laura is still like, reeling from the loss of this relationship. But it definitely is one of the most beautiful tracks on the album for that reason. I love the melody on the track. And also pedal steel just come in again for this track, and I think really adds a lot to it for sure. And also, like, one of the strongest songs on here, lyrically in my opinion, is definitely this song. Then the album closes with the song For You, which definitely is this very mournful kind of sweeping ballad that closes the record I think the chant-like hummed background vocals are absolutely gorgeous and definitely give the song this very sad kind of funeral march kind of feel that just I absolutely love. This is another song where what she does vocally on the track is definitely quite out there and intriguing. And she's sort of reflecting on after this relationship has sort of ended, she sort of, keeps a picture on a fridge, just keep this person safe. This person safe. Yet another sentiment that I think we can all relate to in a kind of socially distanced world. Also love some of the other instrumental elements that occur. The twangy guitar solo, the like very what sounds kind of like a synth solo, but has this sort of Irish feel to it almost. It definitely has this very, it definitely musically is one of the more sort of mournful and boozier instrumentals on the record, even. Is the record even, and even, yeah, and the song. Overall, I think this album is definitely very. I thought this record was definitely very good. And the thing I was gonna say was, I think this is the kind of album that I think she made the right call not to wait till August to release this album, which was I heard her first intention behind this project. But then once the COVID-19 pandemic started and all this stuff, she just decided to release the album early in April of 2020, and I will say it was definitely the right call because back in April of 2020 when all the craziness happened, I really needed an album like this to make me feel like someone else besides my parents was there for me. I also think the album itself is just incredible. Like some very no frills, no bells and whistles, fantastic folky singer-songwriter ballads with great singing and very fantastic poetry throughout. The instrumentals, even though they're very spare, I think are very gorgeously nuanced. I think Ethan Johns, considering how much of a veteran he is, I think he did the instrumentals plenty of justice here by just doing very little with them, and this is definitely the kind of record that for those other people who maybe aren't super into Laura Marling and are just now kind of maybe ready to give up on her or something like that, I encourage them to listen to this album and see if it changes their mind. And, because of how amazing it is, I'm very sure it likely will, change the minds of anyone who thinks, Laura Marling just, doesn't really have that much more to say. Because she has definitely lots more to say, and I definitely come away from this record having lots of hope for her musical future. So, dare I say it, going with a light 9 out of 10 for this new fantastic Laura Marling record, Song for Her Daughter. I'll see you for episode 275.